Do you think that the people who died on that plane are collateral damage in the tensions between Iran and the U.S.?
I think if there were no tensions, if there was no escalation recently in the region, those Canadians would be right now home with their families. This is something that happens when you have conflict and war. Innocents bear the brunt of it, and it is a reminder why all of us need to work so hard on de-escalation, on moving forward to reduce tensions and find a pathway that doesn't involve further conflict and killing.
You know, when Trudeau does his bedroom voice, when he gets really deep and sexy like that, you know that's a time to hang on to your wallet. Did you hear what he actually said there? He blamed the tensions for shooting down an airline with over 170 casualties. The thing is, tensions don't shoot down airlines. There's tensions all the time, especially with a dictatorship. What shot down that airline was a missile that the Iranian government admits they shot. Justin Trudeau is still blaming others, including America, and that's a media party trope that even Iran no longer argues. Joining us now to talk about this is our friend Manny Montenegrino, who's the CEO of Think Sharp. He joins us now via Skype from Ottawa. Manny, am I overreacting? Was Trudeau being nuanced and friendly, or is he actually trying to take the blame away from Iran and just sort of say, well, accidents happened, things happened, and America raised the tensions, so they're equally to blame? That's how I felt. Am I misreading it?
No, I don't think so, Ezra. You are nailing it as it should be said. First of all, Ezra, my prayers and thoughts are for the 176 killed. It is the most disturbing news you could hear, but it is terrible. So I'll start with that. I have some good Iranian friends, and I certainly learned a lot about Iran through my Iranian friends. And one is a member of parliament, a provincial parliament, a conservative member of Ontario. No, it's not wrong, Ezra. Your feelings are right. I'm surprised because the Prime Minister resisted a blame game for a couple of days. And now, while Iran accepts blame, accepts criminality, in fact, this was a criminal act or a gross criminal conduct or a gross negligent act. Either way, it is criminal in nature. The Iran government itself has set up a judiciary committee to review, and as I understand, as of today, are charging and have already detained the criminal conspirators to this mass killing. To sit there and lay blame to tensions and anything else and directing it to President Trump is reckless. There are no reasons or explanations for criminal conduct. Iran is even on that path. So it shocks me to see that the Prime Minister is moving towards that narrative. So it is just wrong. It's wrong in so many levels. At no time, even during conflict, should there be any criminality, intentional killing of innocent victims, and it's criminal in nature. Yeah. You can't say that the tensions resulted in this. We will see who did it, who was ordered, and why it was done. But at no time, even Iran is upset by this at this moment in time.
Yeah. You know, I knew Trudeau had gone so far when I saw a story by Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is owned by the government of Qatar, which is an extremist dictatorship in the Gulf region. They're known to support terrorist groups, like they're very radical. And they were praising Trudeau's how he verbalized this. When Al Jazeera, the state broadcaster of Qatar, thinks you're right, that's probably a sign you're doing democracy wrong.
There's more to that, Ezra. Unfortunately, we seem not to be guided by history. We seem not to remember what happened last week, last month, or the months before. We seem to ignore the plight of the Iranians. The Iranians have been protesting for months to remove this terrorist regime. 300 Iranians, according to Amnesty International, have been killed in these protests. This is as of December, my numbers, there might be more. Thousands have been imprisoned. I mean, 300, that's twice, those are two of those planes of Iranians that were killed by this regime because they were protesting against this terrorist regime. Thousands are in jail. We see a similar what's happening in China with Hong Kong, and the Chinese government has not killed any Hong Kong. They've imprisoned them, but Iran has gone way past, and to sit there and not understand or to give them some form of exemption, this government that's already killed 300 of its own people, imprisoned thousands, it's beyond any comprehension.
Yeah, this is obviously the official government line. We saw there from the softball question from Donna Friesen. I suggest that question was set up because in Trudeau's first press conference, after Iran confessed to this, no fewer than 3 CBC journalists within the course of an hour
had
that same narrative. Here's a quick clip of Rosemary Barton, Katie, I think Simpson is the last name, David Cochran, and one other CBC journalist. Here, take a quick look at this.
63 Canadians dead because of the unintended consequences of a decision made by the U.S. president.
Who's to blame, right? I mean, in terms of, is it the United States? Is it Iran? Is it both? Who's to blame here for what happened?
Manny, to have 4 CBC journalists to have the exact same line, which is a very unusual thing, to blame America for Iran shooting down a plane, I think that's an official talking point of Trudeau and Trudeau's CBC. I don't understand why. I mean, it's not like Trudeau's pushing the blame off himself onto Trump. It's like he's siding with Iran against Trump. I don't understand what to make of it.
Well, it's easy. I mean, it's easy. In Canada, Trump is a negative. I think the last time I've seen 75% of Canadians don't like Trump. And so it's easy. If you don't have any intellectual planning or thinking about what our foreign policy should be, well, take the quick, easy, low-hanging fruit and blame Trump and everybody's on your side. I get it. But if you look at Ezra, I keep saying on your show, I think of the 2 Michaels in China.
Right.
The 2 Canadians in China. They saw that after the election, or just before the election, the Prime Minister goes to Washington to plead for the president to do something to save these 2 Canadians. And we saw that was an election move. I knew it was an election move. I knew he wasn't sincere. He did that. Right after the election, you have the mean girl talk of the G7 meeting where they're all making fun of the president, and Trudeau's leading the gang. That hurts the 2 Michaels in China. Now today, how do the 2 Canadians in Chinese jail, the 2 Michaels, feel when the Prime Minister gratuitously, wrongly, and for no reason attempts to shift the blame of a criminal act? It wasn't an act of war. It was criminality. Yeah. It was wrong. It was negligent. It was grossly negligent. The Iranians say so, but the Prime Minister gratuitously blames or indirectly blames the president, who he seeks their help to get these 2 Michaels released from China. It baffles me, and I don't get it. I do get this, though, Ezra. I do get this, because obviously I have, being a lawyer, I understand there are many people that don't want adversarial confrontation. I get that. Most people don't want to go into a fight. I understand that. I guess people forget that in Benghazi, the embassy that was taken over and 4 Americans were killed, the thought at that time was, well, let's not escalate this. Let's not build the confrontation. Well, that's fine, except for the 4 Americans that died. Well, what we had here, General Somali strikes the Baghdad embassy And Trump responded differently. He did the anti-Benghazi. He sent the troops in. So in light of that strike on an embassy that attempted to kill diplomats and Americans, you could see that the president, with the long, rich history of killing Americans, the Iranian general, decided to act. Yeah. So, I know that most people don't want that. And you know what? Let more Americans die so we don't escalate it. This president thinks differently.
Yeah. You know, it's the juxtaposition you make between Trudeau giving China a pass when they really are to blame, and Trudeau falsely blaming America when they're not to blame. It's so striking, and I think you're right. I think Trudeau's just pandering to anti-Trump sentiments. But I think it goes beyond that, because you can be anti-Trump, but also anti-Iran. And let me just show you this one tweet from Rosemary Barton, the senior political correspondent for the CBC. She says that by giving black box information to the West, Iran has gone above and beyond their duty. Yeah. I mean, praising Iran. And like, you can be anti-Trump. I don't agree with it. I think it's inappropriate for a state broadcaster to do that. I think Trudeau's wrong. But to praise Iran, and more news. Manny, I see today that Trump is not only ratcheting up sanctions on Iran, but he's trying to get NATO allies like France and the UK to join him. I don't see Canada doing that same thing. They just killed dozens of Canadians, including a lot of Persian Canadians from across the country. I don't know the exact number. I think it's slightly less than the originally reported 63. Trudeau won't lift a finger against Iran even when other allies are. Help me riddle that one out.
Well, there is this. I guess it's easy, Ezra. It's easy for people that don't parse through all the facts to simply knee-jerk and dislike Trump, and it works. It just works. There are 83 million Iranians that want this government gone. I think my problem is I'm old enough to remember in 1980 when the Shah of Iran was toppled, this theological group, the mullahs, took over Iran. They took over the U.S. Embassy. Canada played a large role in helping America. Mm-hmm. Canada was there standing against this theocracy that's trying to take over and remove people's rights. I remember the Iran before this religious zealots are running the country. It was a country that Canada would admire, with our values of equality of women, equality of people. There was no push of religious ideologies. These were a wonderful, beautiful, smart people. They've been crushed. They are rebelling on the streets now. We don't see it, but the rebellion is getting stronger as a result of the lies and as a result of the negligent criminal killing of these 176 people on board that plane. There is, I hope that through this great tragedy, that 83 million Iranians get back to the lives that they once enjoyed, and this government is gone, and this government kills 300 people for protesting, puts thousands in jail, and creates and killed hundreds of Americans. It's that easy. I think it's just, if you don't think it out, you don't know what's happened the last 30 or 40 years. You don't care about the 83 million Iranians. I mean, my Iranian friends tell me, and here's a great line. When we saw the supreme leader crying at the death of General Soleimani, she said to me, are they going to cry for the 300 people that they killed that were protesting? Yeah. Are they going to cry for the 176 people that were shot down in the plane? Will the supreme leader cry for these people who are innocent? And the answer is no. They know what they feel. Yeah. And I think it's time that and I don't know why our Canadian government doesn't care about the values that we love in Canada that should be spread to the Iranian people who are seeking it. But I do hope and I pray that this tragic event will lead to the less killing of protesters in Iran, the less dominating their lives. I don't even think they have the internet ability there. They've been imprisoned. 83 million Iranians are living imprisoned under this regime. And maybe out of this ugly tragedy that killed a few, maybe many more lives will be saved, and maybe Iran will claim its former glory of this great nation that it once was.
I hope you're right. Yeah, Iran actually, it does have a glorious history. And I think of all the countries in the region, the one that's most likely to become modern, progressive, integrated, peaceful with the rest of the world, I think is Iran. I'm so glad you reminded me of Canada's role during the hostage crisis, where Canadian diplomats helped free American hostages. Clearly, we were on the side of the good guys, both the Americans who were held hostage and also of the previous government that had been kicked out by the violent revolution there. That was a more noble Canada than the one that's siding with the bad guys. Manny, it's great to talk to you as always. Thank you for taking the time with us today.
No problem, Ezra. Right. Thank you.
My pleasure. That's our friend Manny Montenegrino. He's the CEO of Think Sharp, and he joined us today from Ottawa. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.